to shut its doors over threats to staff. It accuses Joburg Economic Development MMC Nkululeko Mbundu of inciting violence with a tweet.
Well, it all stems from the group helping informal traders return to their spots in the city. They were removed as they were alleged not to be on the rental roll. Mbundu tweeted out a criticism and contact details of SERI's staff. Now, SERI's Executive Director, Nomzamo Zondo, joins us now to tell us more about this phenomena. Nomzamo, thank you very much for your time this morning. A very good morning to you. So, exactly what has transpired here, especially with the MMC, that is subsequently having to lead to SERI closing its doors? I mean, to close doors representing informal traders, that's something of significance.
Good morning, Faith. So we brought a case on behalf of 600 informal traders on the 25th of July. These informal traders were acted for since October 2013 and have continued to engage with the city of Johannesburg about their trading over the last 8 years. But surprisingly, after we brought the case, we went to a court hearing where the city of Johannesburg had not yet filed opposing papers. After the court hearing, they wrote to us and offered to settle, agreeing to allow the informal traders back to their trading spots where they've been for the last 8 years plus. And we agreed to this. But a few hours after the agreement, MMC Mbundu tweeted SERI's press release announcing the litigation. And in his tweet, he said, "We've been served with a court interdict." And he says then they used locals as a front to what appears to be they used locals to what appears to be a front to lodge an application which was successful in court. And this statement was followed by a statement that the traders would invade the De Villiers Street the next morning. And then he says, when you see the invasion, know who did it, which to us was him saying as Khan, meaning that people must come on SERI. In that tweet, he tagged SERI's press release, which had the telephone numbers of two of SERI's lawyers. Okay. Those lawyers received threatening phone calls. One of them had a picture circulated on social media. People started making statements about what she's doing, statements that are sexual innuendo. Others then started saying people must come visit our office. Later on, there were tweets threatening to burn our office down. And then someone else started a new Twitter thread, which had a picture of every SERI staff member and said, "I want you to know who the snakes behind SERI are." And the response to that tweet made suggestions that we should be killed, made suggestions that we should be taken to a disused mall in Krugersdorp, made statements that we should be followed home, and pictures of us shared so people know where we live. And as a result, I couldn't, as SERI's ED, and I think even with the support of SERI's board, continue to allow people to go to the office in instances where they could be followed home, where they could be attacked. And as a result, we then closed.
I mean, Nomzamo, obviously the closure is first and foremost the safety of the SERI staff, but this must still be dealt with, I would imagine. I would imagine that SERI would like something to be done to the MMC, or for him to somehow rectify his mistake, because I think we will all agree that it was an error, you know, in the incitement of violence. What would SERI like to see the MMC do or have done to him?
So we did report his behavior to Action SA and to the city of Johannesburg Mayor Palatse. And our request was that he must retract the tweets, that he must especially retract the lies that are in the tweet, right? Because in the tweet, it gives the impression that SERI acted fraudulently by claiming that people were South Africans when they were not. When in the litigation that we brought, we were clear we acted for 605 people. They are all individually named. They are all licensed traders that have been trading in the city of Johannesburg for over 8 years. And in giving the impression that SERI used locals as a front, then people then got the impression that SERI was pretending to act for South Africans in litigation in support of foreign nationals. And we'd asked that he retract the statements. We'd asked that he apologize. We asked specifically that he denounce the threats and address his supporters and followers who are making those threats to us. Unfortunately, none of this has happened. I think the most that we have received from the MMC himself is to say that he denounces threats, but at the same time he has thanked patriotic South Africans, which then is confusing. The only thing that I can say that is helpful to us is that at least because of civil society, because of many South Africans coming out and saying this behavior is unacceptable, we have not had as many overt threats to us in the last few days. We have still seen attacks on those who have supported us. We have seen attacks on the Department of Justice for calling out the behavior of the MMC and demanding that organizations like SERI must be allowed to continue to do what is in fact our job. And we are grateful now that Mayor Paladze sent someone to join our press conference on Monday and actually say, as the mayor, she would not have allowed the MMC to tweet what he did. As the mayor, she knows that someone dropped the ball in relation to the order issued by the Constitutional Court in 2013 and the order that was agreed to on the 27th of July. But as things stand now, unfortunately, there are still people who are harassing us on the official SERI page, on some of the individuals' Twitter accounts. We have tried to get experts to help us in tracing those people. Unfortunately, they are untraceable. Most of them are ghost accounts. They don't have email addresses. We can't find their locations. The police who have opened a case have told us they can't do anything with simply a Twitter user's description. They need a name, a telephone number, and an address.
Yeah, you know, Nomzamo, as you're speaking about this, one wonders about the impact that this is having on the informal traders that you're supposed to be representing. It's one thing to have to deal with now issues of incitement and safety concerns, when really what you should be doing is dealing with issues of the representation of informal traders who've been trading in the city and need to be given that space so that they can trade. But now it's almost as though you've had to remove yourself from the purpose of the organization and focus solely on the intention on keeping your staff members at bay and safe.
Exactly, Faith. Fortunately, the informal trade has returned to work on the 27th of July. But as we speak now, many of us know that in the month of August, SERI normally focuses on advocacy around Marikana and ensuring justice for the Marikana victims. It being Women's Month, would have been focused on supporting domestic workers, which is another core group that we support through our litigation, research and advocacy. And most of our energy for this past week has been in making sure that our staff is safe, has been trying to find what remedies are out there for us in these circumstances. And it's really made it difficult for us to do the work that we committed to doing and have done in the last 11 years.
It's just worth noting, Nomzamo, and I think we're letting our viewers know as well, that eNCA did reach out to the MMC, of course, for right of reply, as we do have to give him that opportunity. But what he did say in response, he did say he's unavailable, but what he did say in response to a message that was that he sent to eNCA was that his tweet was not actually about SERI staff. You know, essentially, you know how politicians will always say things are taken out of context, but he did say that the tweets were not about SERI staff, were not directed at SERI staff. How do you respond to that?
So when we wrote to the mayor and we copied the MMC's communications team on this letter, we set out each individual tweet, and one of the tweets that the MMC made, apart from the one that I mentioned earlier, was a tweet that said it has become apparent that we are dealing with a syndicate with big vested interests. And in the course of an exchange, people asked him, are you then saying courts are part of the syndicate? And he said he respects the courts. He could never say that courts are part of the syndicate. But later on, he was asked if he had asked Gayton McKenzie for advice, even though Gayton McKenzie is based in the Karoo, bylaws are bylaws, informal trading is informal trading. And in response to that, the MMC said, is Gayton McKenzie dealing with an NGO holding a constitutional court order in the Karoo? And for us, that can only be a reference to SERI, because in this issue, we are dealing with the South African Informal Traders Forum, which represents the people who are mostly affected. In an earlier tweet, he referred to people who are Ubuntu sympathizers. And again, the Ubuntu sympathizers can't be the people who are directly affected. It has to be us who are litigating to represent those who are directly affected. And all of this we've put in a letter that we sent to the mayor, and we make sure that that letter comes to the attention of the MMC. My colleague, who is the person who's been most affected by this, was the lawyer running the case, had been in interviews with the MMC. And in one of those interviews, the MMC called her a liar and said that she is making herself a victim when there are so many women in South Africa who need support more than her. And I say this in instances that where there has been suggestions of rape, there has been suggestions that we must be lynched. Even on my personal Twitter page, there has been threats of violence to me. And in all of this, the MMC took this position. Outside of that, his party, the Action SA, has said it's SERI who put the personal cell phone numbers of their staff on the press release, and also took media interviews, and therefore we are the source of our troubles. But again, we even in communications with Mr. Mashaba, which started as early as Friday from our office, we had pointed out to him that the threats were in response to tweets made by MMC Mbundu. And we'd even shared some of those tweets with them so that they could see them. In fact, his response to me was, he has MMC Mbundu's account, he'll be able to check the tweets himself. So unfortunately, the response that we have gotten from the MMC and Action SA has been to deny their responsibility against clear facts that this is linked to the tweets made by MMC Mbundu, who, as I said earlier, basically set their supporters on SERI staff and then stood on the side as the threats happened. I mean, it's amazing to me that in the threats to burn SERI's office down, the city of Joburg is tagged. And in some of the threats to us, the MMC Mbundu is tagged, but not even once did it denounce that.
Yeah, Nomzamo, it's one of those stories that we're going to definitely try to a little bit more harder to get the MMC's and Ngululego's response to this one, because as you're saying, these are very severe accusations that are coming out now on behalf of SERI, and especially if staff in itself is under threat. That can never be taken lightly. We're going to have to leave it there for this morning. Thank you very much for your time, Nomzamo Zondo, there representing SERI.